Welcome back to Long Walk Talks. My name is David Hensley. I'm the owner and creative director of Long Walk Productions, and I am joined today by my two co-hosts,
Cara Hayes.
Robert Bradford.
And we are continuing our summer blockbuster discussion. Today, we're talking about the movie Disclosure Day, Steven Spielberg's newest film that we saw earlier this week and had a variety of opinions on. But before we get into that discussion, I have a PSA for all of our listeners out there. It's a pet peeve of mine, and it's a very vulgar PSA, so just strap in. Guys, when you get to a movie theater and that movie starts, shut the fuck up.
Please.
That's it. That's the entire PSA. Put your goddamn phones away. You got no reason to look at them while the movie's playing. And don't talk. It's very simple. You're in a public place with a bunch of people who are also trying to watch the same movie. Definitely don't talk at full volume like the assholes sitting behind us were. I had to turn around and snap at somebody and tell them to stop because they just wouldn't shut the fuck up. So please, pretty please, with sugar on top, next time you go to the movies and you feel the urge to speak to somebody at full volume, just don't.
The person in the row ahead of us and to the left, it was an older couple, and occasionally there was a little whispering, but it was more the, wait, what did he say? Oh, he said this. And it's like, okay, that fair, little distracting, but I get it at a certain point.
And I noticed when we were leaving the theater, I feel like there was they were elderly because they both had canes, and also like he was like using something on his phone to help him hear / see. I'm not sure what it was.
There's a point where I'm willing to be like, okay, I understand if this is how you need to have someone with you for the movie, but yeah, just conversation or just like trading your like thoughts as the movie is happening at normal speaking volume. There is a special hell for you.
Yes.
I can't wait till you get there.
Exactly. That's it. That's the PSA. Shut the fuck up and put your phones away. Anyway, Robert, take us away.
Yeah, so my overall feeling about this as we walked out was this is what it would look like if Steven Spielberg directed a script by M. Night Shyamalan. It's a movie that just keeps introducing these kind of fantasy magic style rules, and a lot of the dialogue is just this mix of either kind of overdone realism of people like, well, I'm doing this. Wait, what do you mean you're doing this? I'm telling you, I'm doing this. And people just being very intense and staring at each other while voicing important ideas in a way that doesn't sound like an actual human being talking. Like, what do you mean you're going to introduce the concept of superior beings to people who have spent their entire existence conditioned to believe in superior beings? Why do you have that right? Which I don't think is an actual quote from the movie, but it's basically the gist of what was probably my least favorite scene. We'll get to it.
Yeah.
And I say this as someone who, I generally defend Shyamalan. A lot of his movies don't work, but he's a guy who has his own style. He commits to it, and when he gets actors who can do it well, I get on board. It just feels like kind of theatrical and stagey, but when it doesn't work, it just feels so clunky and weird.
Which could also describe this movie. That starts off from the first-person perspective of a wrestler losing a wrestling match, and my first thought was that's definitely one way to start off a movie.
And I'd heard about this because I'd seen, I follow both of these wrestlers on social media. So it is the Murder Hawk Monster, Lance Archer, and the Machine, Brian Cage, doing a wrestling match. And you don't really get a good look at him, but Chavo Guerrero Jr. was also playing the referee. So a lot of fairly recognizable names if you're a longtime wrestling fan.
So apparently I was the only one that didn't know that was a thing and also didn't hate it. Like, not that you hated it, but it's just interesting to me. I had no idea.
Well, the whole idea, what we find out is, we're seeing this because it's a public place that's been chosen for, like, a trade-off of important items. And, it's sort of like, meet me in, like, at, like, a bus terminal or a restaurant. Like, the idea of, like, we'll do this where there's a bunch of people around that these types of movies have always done. And having it being a pro wrestling match, I thought was actually a nice little piece of flavor. It also got me thinking about a version of the movie where we don't follow Josh O'Connor out of the building. We see Lance Archer and Brian Cage as the empathy conduits that the aliens use to introduce themselves to the human race. And that got me thinking about a whole alternate movie about a group of indie wrestlers who find themselves at the forefront of an alien invasion and just like with the Like they have no money in their pockets, but they have to just put together enough gas and hot dogs to deal with the incoming alien threat.
Okay, listen. I would see that movie. Could we make that movie?
I 100% would, because I want to see somebody like body slam E.T. The aliens in the movie all have to be E.T. sized.
Oh. I mean, okay.
I mean, Rey Mysterio can body double all of them.
There you
we
go.
Perfect. This is one of those movies where nobody has a name that's just like Joe Smith, you know? Everybody's got to have a unique name, which gives us Margaret Fairchild, Dr. Daniel Kellner, Noah Scanlon, Jane Blankenship, Hugo Wakefield, Casper Boyd,
Elizabeth Marvel, which not a character name, that's one of the actors, but it just seemed like it fit in with the line.
and then there's poor Wyatt Russell's character, Jackson. Womp. He didn't get a unique last name.
No, but we don't know if that's his first or his last name. I don't think
It's
Emily
both.
Blunt knows either.
He's like Cher.
Jack Jackson. Well, Margaret Fairchild is played by Emily Blunt, whose whole shtick throughout the movie is extreme empathy / mind reading. It's pretty unclear how exactly that works, because she feels other people's feelings, but can also like reach into their minds and figure out what's going on. She does her absolute best trying to sell this, but all of these scenes to me just came off silly as hell. One of the first times we see it in action is she gets pulled over by a cop, and as he's trying to like get her to get out of the car, she starts reading back to him like everything that's currently going wrong in his life. And then she just sort of drives away and he watches her go, and I was thinking, that's not how traffic stops work.
But listen, if that's a power I could have, like, I would love that, because I could be like, I'm just going to bombard you with shit, and then I'm going to fuck right off.
All right,
Bye.
I'm going to let you off with catharsis this time.
Yep.
Yeah,
I don't know though. Would you want to constantly be inundated with the emotions of the people around you?
So that's an interesting question that I've seen people talk about with this movie, is because I admit I don't hate the idea that in that kind of staple of first contact movies where the aliens give like a single human or a small group of humans some extra ability. And a lot of the time it's like, oh, this person now has the ability to like blow things up with their brain or shoot lasers or whatever. And the idea that she's just got the ability not even to read minds, but just to look at somebody and know what they need to be told. It's an interesting idea, but the question is it benevolent like the movie seems to want to believe, or is that actually basically you've just given her this ability to manipulate everybody she meets? That like her knowing this stuff doesn't come from people being close to her, sharing information, the time that, not to throw it back to obsession, but like the difference between like a real bond that humans form over time and experience versus just something that is just put between your brains by some higher power. I don't know. It's one of many things in this movie that I think is an interesting sci-fi idea, but the movie just leans so hard into this is the good thing and this is the bad thing, without realizing how unclear a lot of it is.
Interesting, because I remember sort of going through the whole or most of the movie. I didn't know who was the good guy or the bad guy. Like, I mean, you have your obvious. You're like, okay, these people are trying to get these people, and these people are trying to get away from those people. But I don't know that I didn't really feel like anybody was actually maybe necessarily a good person. Maybe Hugo, like, I don't know. I'm not even sure about him. Like, everybody just kind of felt a little ambiguous.
Okay.
Which I thought to me was sort of how you would kind of feel. It's like, I understand why people don't want this information out in the public, and then I understand the people that do. It's like both sides. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's definitely there. I guess just the difference is that I didn't quite think the movie dug into that enough to make me feel like they were really... It was just one of many ideas that were interesting conceptually, but as executed, just felt like we kind of just sort of sketch them out and then keep moving forward. I also just... Another note about Emily Blunt's character is it reminded me... Have you all both seen Minority Report?
Mm-hmm. Years ago?
Yeah, just this... there are these beings who can see the future, and the cops use them to stop murders before they happen. Tom Cruise sees himself committing a murder and goes on the run to try to prove he's innocent. And at one point he breaks out one of these psychics and he's like moving her through a shopping mall. And it's a fun bit because she'll just like reach out, grab a random person and be like, don't go home. He knows. Or she'll like grab Tom Cruise and be like, no, stop right here. and they'll pause, and then like a clown walks by with a bunch of balloons in his hand, just as the cops who are chasing them go by overhead, so they can't see where they're standing. It's a really fun little scene, and a lot of what Emily Blunt does felt like that was leftover material. I think it's the same screenwriter. I know Spielberg directed both. I don't remember if Kep wrote Minority Report or not.
Also, you don't really necessarily have to have mind-reading powers or precognitive powers to go to a mall and do that. You could just stop somebody and be like, don't go home, he knows, and then walk off.
There's a gag in How I Met Your Mother where Neil Patrick Harris's character picks up women at the Empire State Building by going to like the viewing point on top, just walking up to any woman alone, shaking his head and going, he's not coming. Because he knows like 1 in 4 women are there for like a romantic reunion with someone. So he's like, yeah, I'll like strike out like 3 or 4 times, but eventually someone's going to be like, what? And then they'll go home together.
Oh, Barney.
It's an interesting thing in this movie that both of the kind of main female characters, Margaret Fairchild and Jane
Blankenship,
Jane the ex-nun, that they spend a fair amount of their screen time, especially in the first half, being like possessed by forces outside their control. And we don't really know who they are beforehand. So, normally in a possession movie, you want to be like, okay, here's who they are. And that's what makes it so disturbing when they act differently. I think Blunt is good enough to be like, okay, you see sort of when she's in and out of that mode and how she's not even really conscious of when the change is happening. So it's more disturbing for everybody around her. With Jane, like the scene where she gets possessed by Colin Firth and, he's telling her, like, give me this information about where you are. You may have to kill your boyfriend. She plays, like, the fear of it well, but it never felt like she was established enough as a character for the, oh, no, she's not who she's supposed to be moments to land like they should have.
No. We get, like, one scene each to try to establish who these people are. And basically Margaret is a chaos goblin. Was what I got out of it. And Jane is also there.
Well, she's like the pretty news lady or the pretty weather lady on local news, and she wants to be like a serious journalist. And I guess that sort of sets up where she is at the end.
Well, throughout the movie, they're constantly in the background talking about a pesky little thing about World War III being on the brink. And with that being ever present, it kind of seems like the sort of thing you'd want to spend more time on. But no, just we get background news reports that like, we're at DEFCON 2, and there are bombers in place in strategic positions, and negotiations have broken down with North Korea, and it's just like, where's that movie? Why aren't we talking more about that?
Well, because that's just the backdrop. Because listen, if World War III is imminent, and then all of a sudden somebody comes out and says, hey, we have aliens. Trust me, World War III just takes a backseat. Nobody cares. We want the aliens.
Cara, have you seen or read Watchmen?
Who?
The comic or the what? Okay.
Oh, no.
It's funny because that's basically the climax of the story.
Well, it's also the climax of this movie, which we'll talk about when we get to.
I told myself beforehand I was only going to compare this movie to Arrival once, which I think Arrival just does everything this movie does, but better.
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, it's fantastic. But Arrival also kind of does the similar, like we're, trying to figure out how to make contact with these aliens, and also tensions are escalating around the world. But it makes it neater because tensions are escalating because nobody can figure out if the aliens are hostile or not. And so, like, resolving the question of how do we communicate with them also resolves the question of do we all start shooting or not? And here it just sort of feels like, nope, this is just regular international nuclear arms drama. And by the way, it just so happens that alien contact is happening simultaneously. I made a note here, and this isn't really a criticism of the movie, but I think, David, I know you and I saw the new Naked Gun with Liam Neeson.
Yes.
That movie has a hilarious gag which like the classic like cop on the run story where he's like gotta go off the grid, and so he'll like smash his cell phone or whatever. A recurring thing in this movie is that like the members of the conspiracy to reveal the aliens to everybody have these single-use cell phones that they like use and then destroy. But I just couldn't help thinking of the gag in The Naked Gun where, like, anytime Liam Neeson touches a phone, he finishes the conversation and snaps it in half, whether it's a smartphone, whether it's like a desk phone landline, whether it's just... I think at one point he does it to he borrows a phone from like a cab driver and then just like throws it out the window without that guy doing anything. So yeah, it just reminded me of a very funny gag in a different movie. And again, not Disclosure Day's fault, but sometimes a thing just gets ruined like that.
Yeah, Cara, you need to see the new Naked Gun. It is hilarious. It is funnier than it has any right to be.
Oh, I like that.
Well, Riot
Wussel,
Why soul?
as his girlfriend calls him affectionately. Who's my Riot Wussel?
third time's a charm. Let me try that one more time. Wyatt Russell,
Yay.
the son of Kurt Russell, who we just watched a few weeks ago in Bone Tomahawk, plays Jackson, the aforementioned last name or possibly first nameless boyfriend of Emily Blunt's character, who gets to be the most realistic and relatable person in the movie because he's just like, wow, my girlfriend has developed this weird power and is saying some really off-the-wall fucking things and keeps, talking about people that I've never heard of, and things are getting really fucking weird. We all think that if something like this happens to us, we'd be super understanding and supportive.
Nuh-uh.
But realistically, you'd be like, I'm sorry, what the fuck are you talking about? Did you have a stroke? You should have stayed in the
burnt toast.
Right. Like, he should have been like, yeah, I'm not helping you escape this hospital. You need psychiatric help.
Well, the FBI shows up to talk to her, and she just bug-eyed looks at them and goes, "Those aren't FBI," and immediately goes scrambling out the nearest window. And it's like, yeah, this is schizophrenia is going to be the first thought of most people in this situation. I also just, noted earlier the script has an issue with giving its quote-unquote normal characters this kind of weird, overdone, realistic dialogue, and I think Wyatt Russell has to handle the most of that because he is supposed to be the ordinary guy on the periphery of this for most of the time.
Speaking of peripheries, thank you, Robert. There's an ongoing problem throughout the movie that I couldn't help but call out. Why does nobody in this movie have peripheral vision? There's a scene where Daniel and his girlfriend Jane are supposed to be hiding out in this farmhouse way out in the country, and he's off making a call on one of his burner phones, one of his many burner phones, when this shadowy government organization, what were they called, Robert?
Wardex. And it's an acronym for something, but I've forgotten what it was.
Yeah, same. It doesn't matter.
They're in charge of containing the knowledge of aliens because Richard Nixon couldn't help bringing Jackie Gleason to Area 51 is the official explanation for this movie. But after Nixon brought Jackie Gleason to see the aliens, they were just like, okay, we can't trust presidents with this crap anymore. And I gotta say, most understandable and realistic part of how this agency works. Like, yeah, I wouldn't have trusted several of the last presidents to know about aliens either.
Just Bill Clinton out there picking up chicks by taking them to see aliens. But so Wardex shows up at this farmhouse while Daniel is away, like off making this phone call, just standing in a field. He can see them. None of them see him. So he sneaks up to the fence line and just sort of crouched over, runs along. Nobody notices this guy.
Well, now, David, let's be clear. Surely you're talking about like a solid brick wall or like a. There's no way to see through the fence if he's crouched down, right?
Nope, it's one of those wooden fences where you got
rail.
A split rail. Yep, clearly visible. At one point, he falls over and makes a clatter. No one looks. He walks up to one of their Dodge Chargers, gets behind the wheel, and starts it before anyone notices. And this is just an ongoing thing throughout the movie. In the climax, we're jumping ahead a little bit, but Jane is able to walk straight through a big throng of these Wardex agents to hand Emily Blunt the MacGuffin of the movie. No one sees her. No one attempts to stop her. There are so many more moments like this throughout the movie that I was just like, why can't anybody look slightly to their left or right? After we left the movie, before the four of us went our separate ways, I was like, guys, indulge me for a second. Look straight ahead, but move your eyes to the left and right. Okay, everybody good? We all have peripheral vision. Excellent. Just making sure.
The movie itself actually works this in because Colin Firth is able to possession talk to Jane, and he makes her look around to see what's in the room around so he can figure out where they're located. And he literally makes her turn her head 90 degrees to the left and do a full rotation of the room she's in, because obviously she can't. How can you possibly see what's to your left if your head is not pointing that way?
Well, there's a character played by Coleman Domingo, the aforementioned Hugo, whatever, I can't remember his last name now. It was super unique.
Wakefield?
Yeah, Hugo Wakefield, who has created this like splinter faction of Wardex, these rebels who want to reveal the existence of aliens to the world. And he is in a completely different movie than everyone else. He is having the time of his life in an otherwise super dour movie where everybody is acting so hard. And he gets to walk around this big set talking on his Bluetooth. I don't think he probably, aside from the climax of the movie, didn't film more than 2 or 3 days with most of these people. He's always just off on his own with his geek squad.
Well, as I noted, overseeing the official first contact on behalf of humanity is no reason not to get your steps in, because literally he's constantly pacing around this area while people are building a house around him for reasons we find out later. But like he's never just like, oh yeah, let me step into the corner and take this call real quick. He's always just walking from A to B while people like try to follow him around. I agreed that Coleman Domingo is really fantastic in the role. We can talk about the movie's relationship to religion or its exploration of that later, but I mean, he's sort of this like John the Baptist figure. Like he's the guy who's preparing the way. We find out he's had not just direct contact with the aliens himself, but he's actually apparently like got one in his house. But like he believes in what he's doing. He's spoken with the higher powers. And so he's got this excited serenity to him that he's just really hyped about knowing he's doing the right thing. And maybe a scene I really did like is when Colin Firth tries to possession talk him, and they have kind of a debate over whether or not they should whether or not it's a good idea to keep aliens a secret. And Firth lays out his point, which is just if they're choosing to make themselves known to us, then they've decided it's to their advantage. And Domingo thinks that's a cynical way to look at it. It's interesting, but, and again, Cara, maybe, I know you thought you saw a little more ambiguity in the movie than I did. I thought we were meant to see Domingo's character as like the guy who's good, who's believing in hope and all that nice stuff. And Firth is like the crabby, cynic who just can't believe that nice stuff happens in the universe. And it felt like they're both zealots in their own way. They're both like super committed to and certain that what they're doing is how things have to be. And the moral ambiguities of both, like we see Colin Firth do a lot of really sketchy stuff, but we later find out that the aliens, as part of their big first contact plan, kidnapped 2 children and like brain implanted them with stuff. And it's just that the idea that like, Domingo's character sees this as like, well, of course it's so benevolent and it's just their wonderful way of expressing their empathy to us. And it's just like they're both convinced that this stuff is acceptable for the greater cause. And it feels like the movie condemns Colin Firth, but lets Wakefield and his faction off a little easy.
Yeah, I could see that.
Now, are you saying the greater cause or the greater good?
The greater good.
Greater good.
I had to.
Thank you, because it went through my mind. Anytime I hear the greater, I'm like, say it.
Good. I know I just made fun of it, but I had to call out one person in particular. Josh O'Connor plays Dr. Daniel Kellner, the guy who stole all the evidence about these alien space ship crashes and interrogations and tortures, and wants to help reveal them. And throughout the movie, he is always acting so hard. Every scene that he is in, it's like it is the most dramatic moment of this guy's life.
My wife Gina saw this movie with us, and we were talking about it afterwards. We both agree that there's an issue that it's supposed to be both his journey and Margaret's, that he and Emily Blunt are sort of like the twin figures that are making it possible for humanity to connect with these aliens. But whenever they're both on screen together, Emily Blunt just feels like the much bigger character. Like, oh no, it's definitely her story. And oh right, he's here too. And we were debating whether that's a script problem or an acting problem. If it's just that like Margaret is written to be a more interesting character, or if it's just that Emily Blunt, again, no offense to Josh O'Connor, who I really liked in the latest Knives Out movie and some other stuff, but it just doesn't feel like he's as dug into this as Blunt is.
Well, I mean, I'm honestly, I had no idea he was in anything. For me, I knew Emily Blunt. And of course I recognized Colin Firth, and I was so proud of myself that I remembered his name. I was so that just because I was like, I know that guy. I know his name. But, for me, it was, I know her face. And I didn't know, aside from obviously Elizabeth Marvel, like I knew her. But I didn't really know a lot of the people in this movie. And so to me, I think that's why it feels like it's her movie. Not, and he's there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's both a script problem and an acting problem. He is so one note the entire movie. It's all dour from the first time we see him to the end of the movie. Like I don't think he smiles the entire movie. It's always just, again, this is the most dramatic. Every moment with him is the most dramatic of his life. Meanwhile, we do get to see Margaret, Emily Blunt's character, have layers, have levels, and yeah, it just makes her so much more interesting to watch, even if some of the things that she has to do and say veer so heavily into just being silly after a point, in my opinion. Oh, boy.
Just noting actors that we recognized. It's a Spielberg cast, so it's a lot of faces who've been working in the business for a while. But my top, hey, it's that guy moments were Colin Firth's kind of right-hand woman is played by a Korean-Canadian actress, I think, by the name of Hye-Yeon Park, who I will always remember as Beverly Katz on Hannibal, one of the FBI forensics people in that show who gets to just, give us the scientific breakdown of the dude who's got mushrooms growing out of him or whatever. Just a really fun performance from her. And then Craig Kettleman, because, Cara, you remember on Better Call Saul, like the Kettleman, like the guy who embezzles a bunch of money from Treasury and his insane wife who's like refusing to admit they ever did anything wrong for stealing these millions of dollars.
Oh, my God. I never even... Wow.
Yeah, it's a bit characters on Better Call Saul, but just very fun performances by these two. And he plays the news producer that kind of lets them in and allows them to do their big broadcast.
That's why I kept looking at him thinking, that guy looks familiar. Do I know somebody who looks like him? No. But I did remember his face, sort of.
Well, this movie is primarily a drama, but there are two scenes that are very action-heavy. One of them was shown off in pretty much all of the trailers. It briefly turns these two main characters into action stars for some reason. One of the shadowy Wardex guys takes his truck and tries to use it to ram Margaret's car into a moving train, which forces them to have to climb on top of the car and then up the side of the train. And I was just like, okay, you should both be dead by the rules established of this movie. Neither of you are trained agents or anything like that. Yeah.
Can I add something to, because just after that, for me, was probably the most realistic moment of the movie when I was watching Emily Blunt have a panic attack. And as soon as I saw her, I was like, yep, I know what that is, because by God, I've been there. And, just everything that she was talking about. And she was like, my hands. And, oh, my God, that, it made me go, don't have a panic attack over her having a panic attack. Don't have a panic attack over her having a panic attack.
When she's thinking about her dad with Parkinson's?
Well, I mean, just the whole after they get into the rail car and she's, she can't breathe.
Her, adrenaline come down, yeah.
Yeah, but it's, classic panic attack, and I hated it. I hated watching it.
Oh, yeah, and that just makes it even weirder to have such a realistic, down-to-earth moment come on the heels of we have to jump off this car onto the side of a moving train and get on top of it. I just thought that whole sequence was so ridiculous. But the other one from earlier in the movie, after Daniel sneaks by all these trained government agents and steals their car, they have a car chase. And he is a computer analyst. He's got a doctorate in cyber crimes, essentially. And he is trying to outrun a bunch of government agents, which leads to my next note. Have none of these highly trained government agents heard of a pit maneuver?
What's that?
Are you?
No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
That was sarcasm.
I mean, it's the easiest thing to do to stop a chase is just veer your car into the back end of somebody else's.
They don't train Word-X agents in that.
Maybe they don't expect alien nerds to ever get into a car chase. As this went on longer and longer, I was like, this should have ended 5 minutes ago. They should have pit maneuvered his car and flipped him, and now he and Jane are paralyzed. Movie over.
I'm going to jump ahead to a note I made later, but this is sort of the classic problem of any movie that deals with like the characters discovering a decades-old conspiracy, because there's always an agency whose whole thing is we keep this conspiracy under wraps, whether it's like government corruption or aliens or a cure for cancer or whatever. And the implication is that for decades they've been doing this successfully. Like nobody knows. It's mind-blowing for anybody to find out that this exists. And yet when we actually see this organization working, they're really bad at their jobs. Like they don't seem to have any means of like containing information except send a team of guys in sedans to run somewhere, tackle somebody and drag them over to like the nearest airplane hangar. Like we'll talk about the climax of the movie when we get there, but literally their only plan for stopping this broadcast of like the information that their whole organization's existence is predicated on containing is basically yank the plug out of the wall. And when that doesn't work, they have no fallback plan.
No, and I just remembered the other two. Holy shit, these guys don't have any peripheral vision moments. It's after this car chase. They run the Dodge Charger off a cliff by getting out and putting a brick on the accelerator. And so when the Vortex guys show up, they see it in the water and automatically jump to, well, they're dead. Let's go down there and get the bodies. Meanwhile, the camera pulls back and you see that like 10 feet away from them, maybe less, Jane and Daniel are hiding behind a rock. And that's not good enough for them because while the Vortex guys are still standing there, they stand up and sneak off. And I was like, just look left. This whole search of yours could be over if you turn your head slightly to the left, Vortex guys. The other is later when the Vortex people finally catch up to them at this hotel room they're in. Jane and Daniel go in the bathroom and he has her climb out the window and she just runs away. Any government agency there to pick somebody up is going to put people in the front and the back. They should have been waiting to snatch her out of that window. But then she stands there at the edge of the forest watching through the window and then just walks off. Just turns and walks away.
There's just kind of a disconnect here that I feel like you have between the ambitions of the movie to be like a thoughtful meditation about like what it means to be human and the power of empathy. Like it wants to handle Alien First Contact in a thoughtful and adult way, but it wants to also play by the like whimsical Spielberg, like, ooh, kids on an adventure and like if the movie just had a more fun tone with its theme, I would be less bothered by like, well, this isn't a realistic, competent organization because there's some movies where, you're not bothered that James Bond villains aren't very good at capturing James Bond, because that's just how a Bond movie works. But for like the Jason Bourne movies where it's like, okay, these are supposed to be serious, competent people. So when somebody's just an idiot, it feels dumb. And this movie exists in just kind of an uneasy split between those two ravines or those two edges.
Yeah, a lot of these same problems I could forgive in the aforementioned Tom Cruise movie, who's a Minority Report, because that movie, for all of its serious moments, still had a sense of fun to it and still a sense of adventure to it. This doesn't.
Minority Report also had the fun point that since all these cops have ever done is stop murders before they happen, they're really bad at actually investigating crimes and like doing traditional police work. So that had at least a little like built in for the script to excuse.
Yeah, and to bring it back to my point real quick, because I got veered off by the whole peripheral vision thing, these two action scenes just made me think this movie would have been better off without them. Just make it a straight drama the entire time. Trying to shoehorn in these action scenes just felt dumb. It just made everyone involved seem dumber.
I will give the movie some credit. I admire that it doesn't do a whole lot of big spectacle for its, for an alien encounter movie. There's no giant spaceship that emerges over the city. There's no like galactic vista that the characters are transported to. Most of what we see is fairly low tech, like the way that the magic wand rock thing is depicted is mostly just like, it affects your mind and your ability to connect with people. And that's mostly done with in camera. Just, now Colin Firth looks like he's sitting in the room with you, even though he's actually invading your brain, which that part I actually kind of like. I think it's a neat way to do sort of a lo-fi depiction of this without having to go into the spectacle that Spielberg can and has done in a lot of other movies. I don't think it ultimately comes together, but that is an execution that I kind of like.
We haven't talked about the MacGuffin of the movie, a trio of handheld obelisks that can do, I don't know, gesture vaguely. It can turn you invisible. It can allow you to astral project. It can power up an entire news building. It can sort of just do whatever the plot demands that it do.
So it's like a one-wish willow.
Yeah, except you don't break it afterwards. Well, I mean,
it does eventually.
It does eventually break
when the plot has had enough of you using it.
Yeah,
I actually quite like the scene where we first see one because we've kind of skipped over a lot of the plot, but like the bad guys kidnap Josh O'Connor's girlfriend, so he'll return the alien files and stuff he's stolen. But then he turns the tables on them at the exchange ransom point by pulling out one of those wands, and it's a nice bit of villain writing for Colin Firth because even though he's the bad guy, he's also immediately like, "You're holding a dangerous alien device. Here's how you handle it safely. Make sure you don't squeeze too tight." And it kind of sets you up to think that, oh my gosh, could this thing like destroy a city, or could it like release a deadly plague? And it's like, actually, no, nothing we see it do makes it seem like it could do anything else than give. At worst, Josh O'Connor might get a really bad headache from using it.
I don't know. Didn't some guy like poof?
Yeah, at one point a guy disappears, but he reappears as soon as he drops it. And he seems like he's been like jarred by the experience, but I don't think it kills him.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a big Chekhov's invisibility thing because then Margaret gets to use it later on in the movie to not just turn herself invisible, but an entire room full of people.
And the house and the building they're in and the fire trucks that they're going to use for their escape. It just very selective things around them get turned invisible.
Yeah, I could go on about that scene because we find out they have thermal cameras that can see through their invisibility, and they proceed to just not use them.
Well,
you can also hear them.
Yes.
Yeah, it's another moment that, again, if the movie had a goofier tone overall, this scene would have felt a lot more fun, where the Colin Firth just orders his mooks forward and they just run into like the invisible wall or the front of the fire truck. And because the good guys don't want to kill them, you actually see their bodies get like lifted into the air and carried off to the side so they're not run over by the trucks as they drive out. Again, it's a goofy scene, but the movie's so serious all the time that you don't feel like you're supposed to be laughing at it.
Well, the crux of Jane's character is that she is a former nun. Novitiate, thank you. Who had a crisis of faith and left and hooked up with Daniel, Josh O'Connor's character. And she questions his motives in releasing this information about the aliens because if people suddenly found out that aliens were real, like the world's faith is shaky enough. Faith in God is shaky enough as it is. Introducing aliens into the mix would make them question their faith further. And I was like, what is this argument that you're making? If we find out aliens are real, people won't believe in God anymore?
It's a weird thing to take. What is something of a debated question of like, what would it mean for like faith if sentient life exists somewhere else in the universe? But that's a different question from once we know sentient life exists, should people find out about it or not? And like, I know Spielberg is not particularly religious. I don't know anything about David Koepp, but I don't imagine he is either. But the idea of like, should we tell people or not tell people as being like the main question that a religious person would have, that like, gosh, should we deliberately suppress facts so my side doesn't look worse? As if that's the way that like a devout person would approach this, is just a very strange piece of writing. I really like the idea. I think a lot of great writing has been done that explores the question of like the existence of aliens or fantastical otherworldly beings or whatever, and how that would impact like belief systems here on Earth. But yeah, this movie it can't really pick an angle on how to handle it because it uses a lot of religious iconography in the movie. That like Colin Firth, he literally, like, what's his main mode of villainy? Well, he possesses you. Like literally he jumps into your head and you're compelled to do things that you don't want to do. And in fact, we see Jane fight this off by digging her crucifix into the palm of her hand, literally giving herself stigmata marks to repel this devilish influence on her shoulder. And we find out that like when they were children, they were taken from their rooms by beings who appeared in disguise and showed them visions of amazing things. And it's like there's like the classic arc of like, Mary the mother of Jesus or John the Baptist, of like prophets in like the Bible stories that I'm familiar with, and I think well through Judaism and Islam as well. And there's so much there that I just don't see why the script feels the need to actually have a character, like a person, call their local mother superior and be like, hey, quick question, aliens and God, what's the deal with that? And the response has to basically be, yeah, it's fine, don't worry about it.
I mean, that's what I was told when I called them the day after we saw this and asked. They're like, no, you're fine.
Call the nun hotline.
Yep.
Well, in one of the movie's more ham-fisted moments, during that first possession where Scanlon is inside Jane's head, we literally get a cross-cut. We see Scanlon in the Wardex laboratory where he's astral projecting from, holding the alien obelisk in his palm. And then it cuts to Jane at this farmhouse holding her cross in her palm. Like, aliens versus God, which side are you on? Oh, come on.
Yeah, just a film that integrated this more smoothly into kind of what the narrative is doing. And like, we're told that Jane left the church not because she lost her faith in God, but because she lost her faith in people. We're told that. Like, we don't really see how Jane feels about people before or after. Like, she has one scene where she tells Daniel that she doesn't think it's a good idea that they let the world know. And then by the end of the movie, after the phone call to her mother superior, she's decided, actually, people should know. And like, that's it. There's nothing between that establishes, okay, how did she lose it? Like, what does it mean to her to believe this versus that? Yeah.
I don't know when this movie was written, but I think a lot of people have already forgotten. It was only 2 years ago, maybe less, that the government did confirm the existence of aliens. There was a whole committee meeting about it, and people were largely like, okay, cool. Aliens exist.
I mean, I think, let's be real. I think I would assume most of us believe that aliens exist. I mean, the universe is pretty friggin' big. But yeah, to me, like, that's exactly the way I would expect us to behave. Like, okay, and?
I can't afford gas. You want me to care about aliens not currently invading the planet? Like, they exist.
Listen, I'm ready for the alien invasion. Let's go.
I mean, that's the District 9 thesis, right? That if aliens showed up, we would just be like, okay, can we just put them somewhere where we don't have to think about them very often? Just tuck them away in like a little quarantine zone.
But also, like, maybe there's stuff they could help us with. Like, I imagine if they could get here, because we certainly can't get wherever they come from. Like, maybe they have, like, ideas on, like, hey, how do we fix something?
Mm-hmm.
One of the actual debates in the scientific community that I'm really interested about is if we did discover that, like, aliens existed out there, like we received, like, a radio signal or something that was definitely of extraterrestrial origin, that maybe the smartest thing to do would be to not reply and hope they don't notice us. Like, just the point of there was a metaphor that a guy wrote in this, I think it's a novel called The Killing Star, but basically he compares it to being in Central Park in the middle of the night, and he's like, the nights, it's dark out there, there are dangerous people, you hear a noise out there, but rationally isn't the smartest thing to just keep quiet and hope they don't notice you? Like, maybe it's a policeman, but you don't
maybe
know that. Like, the last thing you'd want to do is find a light, like a lamp, and stand under it so other people can see you. And you definitely wouldn't want to shout out, "I'm over here," without knowing who's around you. And that story concludes with a note. Now, there are a few differences between this analogy and the real world. In Central Park, you can eventually find your way out and the sun will come up. Neither of these things is true of the universe we live in.
Imagine that aliens actually come to Earth and are like, hey, what's going on? I don't know why you guys are struggling with crude oil so much. We've got this alternative fuel source that's nearly limitless that allows us to travel through galaxies. Well, you can just have that. Big oil would immediately take it and bury it somewhere and be like, nope, gas. Just, world runs on gas. Look how quickly and efficiently they've tried to shut down any electric vehicle innovations over the last couple of years.
I mean, to be fair, the guy who started an electric vehicle company also just became the world's first trillionaire, so...
And also a Nazi.
It's been mixed success of the stopping electric vehicles game.
Yeah. I just imagine, like, how quickly we would either co-opt or shut down any new innovations aliens could potentially bring to us. Anyway, that might be
These are more ideas that are not explored in the movie that we watched.
Absolutely not. Like the Vortex is funded by the profits from reverse engineering alien technology and selling it. Apparently, that's brought up, it's mentioned, and then they move on. Meanwhile, in the flashbacks to how Margaret was abducted as a child, we see her in her bedroom when a terrible-looking CGI moose shows up and walks up to her bed. Elk.
Isn't it an elk?
Yeah,
Looks
whatever.
like an elk.
Sure, an elk. And then a fox. And my thought during the scene was, why isn't she screaming and running in terror from these wild animals in her bedroom? But then a raccoon walked in and stood up on its hind legs, and I went, never mind, I'm in.
Oh.
I would have followed them as well.
Yeah.
Side note, a lot of low-quality CGI animals in this movie, and I'm trying to decide whether or not that's excused by the revelation that this is how the aliens like project themselves to humans, because we don't fear animals in the way we would like a little gray man. And I'm like, I get that. It's still distracting that they look like CGI animals. But yeah, we find out that both Daniel and Margaret were abducted by aliens and had these special abilities shoved into their brains. And it specifically uses the metaphor of like Hansel and Gretel, like that Margaret keeps thinking about that story, and like the little boy and the little girl are brought to the house. And I'm just like, the movie has to know that in the story, the witch isn't bringing them there for benevolent reasons, right? Like the movie frames it as like, oh, the aliens give them this gift that will ultimately let them, share their message of love and empathy with humanity. And I'm like, I don't know about this kidnapping and experimenting on children for the greater good.
The greater good.
Greater good.
Thing. It's just, again, another point where I was like, and the movie actually shows Daniel, like, he's terrified of animals since then, that he's just like, he sees deer outside the cabin where he and Jane are holing up, and he just admits he's never felt safe around them because this traumatic thing happened when he was a kid. And I guess he just kind of gets over it by the end of the movie.
Also, how have we seen two movies that have Hansel and Gretel in them?
Oh, man, I didn't think about this one.
Wow.
The metaphor in this one is a lot less incestuous than it was.
Thank God.
Well, yeah, and there's less talk of flaying skin off of forearms and using it to masturbate with in this one.
Or wearing you like a sweater.
That too.
But back to this movie.
Yeah, in addition to all the other shit that I've talked about, this fictional government agency already, Vortex just gives up really easily. A car, the people you're chasing, their car went off a cliff, mission accomplished. Your suspects walk right out the front door because one of them can, project visions into your head. It's okay. She has superpowers, whatever. Revealing the existence of a decades-old conspiracy live on TV? Well, the boss sat down, so I guess we'll just leave. What the fuck? And then, yeah, this is, Robert, this is where you brought up the point about...
Yeah, just that it's like, okay, we don't see them actually being that good at the job they've apparently done successfully for decades before the movie started. I want to give some credit, because I do think the movie does a nice job of not making Colin Firth like a mustache-twirling monster that... I mentioned earlier the scene where Daniel pulls out the alien wand and he's immediately like, okay, we want to make sure that doesn't go off or whatever. And, it's implied that they don't just murder people to keep this truth quiet, that they try, they kidnap Jane in order to get the information Daniel has, but they do release her unharmed once he gives them what they want. The only time we ever see them actually outright try to kill someone is when, one of them tries to ram Margaret and Daniel into the side of a train. And that's implied to be like a desperate thing on his part when he realizes that Margaret has this ability to empathy project to anybody she talks to. So I get that they've established that there are lines they're not ready to cross, and that Colin Firth at a certain point he's just like, okay, yep, we lost. But yeah, it's just the fact that they try to take down the station's generator and the backup generator, but magic wand powers everything back up, and it's like they do not have a plan C. Yeah,
I hadn't seen this note before, but this is hilarious, Robert.
Yeah, so we get the big dump of all the footage they have. It starts at this Kansas City broadcast and then gets picked up by like a national affiliate in New York. And honestly, I'd watch a real-time movie just about like the news crew trying to receive and process all this. Like an hour and a half movie about that would be really interesting to me. But yeah, we see, footage of alien ships and alien wreckage. And by the time so we know two things about these aliens by the movie's done. They're big into empathy, and they are really shitty pilots because so many of their ships seem to have crashed in the 5 or 6 decades, maybe, like going back to the, I think, Nixon administration or a little sooner is when they first encountered humanity.
No, it was the 40s.
Yeah, it was
the
47.
Roswell.
They mentioned Roswell.
47, yeah.
So yeah, the aliens just can't, and they can fly their ships across galactic distances, but as soon as they get into Earth's atmosphere, they drop like rocks.
Yeah, during this whole big, we're broadcasting across the world that all this stolen footage of 70 years worth of alien autopsies and crash site recovery and all of this, we see all over the world people are watching on televisions and on their phones and on their computers, and it seems like everybody is getting this information all at once. What I really wanted was there to be a cutaway to a bunch of college kids like playing Call of Duty or Marvel Rivals, completely missing this altogether. They're going to put their headphones and their controllers down later and walk out and be like, hey, what are you guys all watching? What do you mean aliens are real? What are you talking about?
It's a very 1970s or 80s view of the media that there's a big news story happening, so everybody's going to be glued to the news about this impending nuclear crisis. And it's just that's not how media has worked for at least 10 years now.
No, and they throw in some shitty throwaway lines about, what is this AI? No, we're running out of time. It's not AI. There would be thousands of people going, this is fake. This is bullshit. This is a publicity stunt. They're just trying to distract us from, I don't know,
whatever.
World War III.
Well, it's a depressing reality of our time. This is another note I made a little later, but so many movies have tried to be like, oh, let's get footage of these aliens out there. Did y'all see Nope from Jordan Peele?
Yes.
Yeah, getting footage of a UFO is a big thing in that movie. And it's a good movie, so I don't want to nitpick about this, but footage of a blurred shape moving through the sky is not going to suddenly convince a whole bunch of people that aliens are real. These days you can make that with an AI prompt. You could, or any a decent suite of effects on your computer. We don't live in a world where footage of what looks like aliens would convince anybody that aliens are real. It would have to be an Independence Day style, mass casualty. Okay, 8 cities around the world just got simultaneously reduced to rubble. That would convince everybody that aliens were real.
I don't know that it would.
It would convince north of 80%, which is, I guess, as high as we could get.
Because I still feel like there would be people going, nah, this is all just a conspiracy. They're all in on it together, and that's what they want us to think.
The world really, at large, seems to have a high opinion of group projects.
Very true.
Anytime somebody talks about a criminal conspiracy like the Illuminati or these shadowy government figures that are secretly pulling all of the strings, I'm like, you have never tried to do a group project with more than 3 other people. When we talk about this government organization or world conspiracy pulling the strings, we're talking about 1 or 2 people who have to do everything while everybody else fucks off. Oh, man.
I mean, it's why Colin Firth has to be personally on site for pretty much everything Wardex does. He's the only one who gets to use the alien magic rock to jump into people's brains, even though it apparently could kill him if he goes too hard on it. Yeah, in theory, it's this big, complex organization, but in practice, it really just seems like a couple of teams of guys in their sedans and Colin Firth and, his 2 named henchmen.
Somebody on Reddit pointed out, and I couldn't think of it the same afterwards, I don't know what kind of health Colin Firth was in while filming this movie, but pretty much every scene he's in involves him either sitting or lying down. We see very few scenes of him standing upright or moving. When he shows up for the climax, one of the first things he does is sit down and just sort of watch whatever's happening. But anyway, I noted here that we know this movie isn't real life because the shadowy government agency doesn't just execute everyone in that newsroom on site and then blame it on terrorists. If we wanted like an overly bleak ending, there was a point where I imagined that was going to happen, that they were just going to kill everyone there and then be like, can you believe the North Koreans did this?
Or, if you want to make a commentary on media, it could be like, the CEO of whatever, like, corporation that the news affiliate belongs to gets a call from the attorney general being told, like, that broadcast stops right now or you and your children disappear into a black site. Like, the idea of, like, okay, let's make it clear what we do and do not want appearing on television, and you're stopping this right now. Like this idea that, their only move is to show up and physically shut down the power of the broadcast in a world where, I don't know, in a crazy hypothetical, the president of the United States might decide to, like, block a massive corporate merger unless a company liquidates the news division that he doesn't like. Maybe. I don't know why that would come to my mind. But
just hypothetically speaking.
Yeah, just, again, a thing where the good guys and bad guys are operating according to, like, a rollicking adventure story rules, but the movie wants to have like serious thoughts about our world and our media, and it just, you can't mesh those two. And for all that, I did like this scene overall. I think it's generally been regarded that like the kind of the standout of the movie is, I think her name is Courtney Grace, who plays the national anchor woman who's kind of narrating in real time as the footage comes out, and she's trying to do this sort of, all right, we're seeing what looks like, oh my. And like, just, it's a nice bit of her trying to do the professional, let me describe what you're looking at, but also I'm a human being and this is an insane thing to observe. So it's like it's a nicely done sequence, but we also like keep cutting to the control room where they're like, all right, make sure this goes out to, like, we're NBC, but let's get it on the air to ABC and Fox and CNN, and we see like across like the big montage of screens as everybody switches over to cover this same thing. And I was like, I'd love to see, like, we pan over to Fox and they're still on their lead story of AOC makes weird face at waiter while everybody else is talking about the aliens or the nuclear war.
I also realized at this point, I would never want to work in that environment. The fuck that shit? No.
I might have mentioned it. I don't know if I talked about it on the podcast, but there was actually a really great movie that came out last year called September 5th about the control room of NBC News at the 1972 Munich Olympics when the hostage crisis happened. So it's just this terrifying event, but it's all told through the perspective of people who have to be like, all right, cut that footage together, get that nameplate in place, make sure we can run somebody over there to get more camera reels to that guy. So
I need to see that.
Yeah, like watching people in control rooms is actually just always neat, pretty much.
It gives me, it just totally gives me anxiety. I can't handle that pressure.
Well, it's heavily implied that seeing this footage and revealing this grand conspiracy is the thing that's going to unite everybody and put a kibosh on like World War III.
Listen.
But instead, I just imagine a cutaway to like somebody in Russia or North Korea being like looking at this on their phone and being like, well, can you believe it? They finally revealed aliens are real. That's crazy. Well, anyway, we got to finish refueling these bombers. They're not going to
refuel themselves.
They're not going to refuel themselves. Can't bomb an orphanage while watching alien footage.
I got to imagine that for like Putin or Kim Jong-un, like realizing that the rest of the world is watching an alien news broadcast would be like, you'd be like, this is the perfect time to turn Kyiv or Seoul into a smoking crater.
I mean, that's kind of how I feel like whenever I see like a bunch of cops on the side of the road. I'm like, sweet, this is the time. If you're going to rob a bank, that's what you want to do it. Isn't that how it works?
That's where your head goes.
What? Maybe not.
That's the biggest revelation of the episode. Cara sees cops massed together and is like, I should go commit a crime.
There's like a purge zone around here for the next 5 minutes.
Well, no, but like...
all crime is legal if the cops are dealing with that traffic jam.
We needed one pickpocket in the background. Everyone's watching the alien footage on their phone, and this guy's just walking around, wallet, purse.
It's not my first thought. It's my second thought, because my first thought is, oh, what's going on over there? Did somebody die? Are there body parts? Can I see them? And then, about 5 seconds later, well, I was going to commit a crime, now's the time.
Oh, man. Disclosure Day.
See, there you go.
There wasn't really a place I could put the note in, but I'm mindful of watching it. Even when there's a lot that I don't think works, Steven Spielberg is really good at making movies. Like, we talked about that ridiculous scene where, like, Josh O'Connor is, like, sneaking around behind this whole caravan of bad guy agents, and none of them can just notice this happening over their shoulder. But the way that's filmed is like a camera moving on a track alongside him that then like swivels through the fence just before he climbs through. And it's a really neat like shot setup that gives this kind of propulsive energy. And the whole movie's full of stuff like that just reminds you that, man, like Spielberg knows how to move a camera and make these things look really cool and exciting. But it's just not a good script. And the tone is just so all over the place that it doesn't add up to anything.
No, and it's worth mentioning the ending of this movie. They bring out an actual alien. Hugo Wakefield, Coleman Domingo's character, wheels out an alien in a wheelchair who looks completely different than all the other ones we've seen. All the other ones looked like the classic depiction of the Greys. They're like 3 foot tall and have bulbous heads. This guy comes out and he's like towering. Oh yeah, Daniel and Margaret get to meet an alien finally. But this alien stands up and it's towering over them, and it whispers something in Daniel's ear, and then he whispers it back to Margaret, and she goes and gets in front of the camera. And the big climax to the movie is she looks directly into the lens, and she says, "Listen." Cut to black.
And she said it wrong. You're supposed to say it, listen.
Well, that's what I was about to say. I wish they had gotten somebody super Southern to play Margaret, so the big climax of the movie is, "Listen."
What I wish we'd seen is the tech assistant in the news studio who just had their reflexes take over and immediately went to try to put a lapel mic on the alien. And then got struck by lightning.
It's not super clear, but you can tell in a couple of these shots that the aliens are wearing clothes. Which I imagine, I want to see that same PA like trying to figure out where on their bodies do I put this mic.
Oh yeah. I mean, am I the only one that, when he wheeled out the alien in the weird covery thing, my first thought was like, are they reeling out FDR's skeleton? I mean, that's legit where my mind went for like 3 whole seconds. I was like, what the hell?
I can honestly say no. I was not expecting that.
The Tennessee Valley Authority was the original alien cover-up.
No, I've seen lots of people say that they were expecting them to wheel out E.T.,
Oh, yeah.
thus completing the trilogy of alien movies.
That probably would have made more sense than FDR's skeleton.
Mr. President? You cut to a close-up of Daniel and Margaret, and they're like, what the fuck are we supposed to do here?
And there's a gunshot, and like the zombie Harry Truman is over in the corner being like, I got the office once, and I won't give it up.
Well, the way the ending is presented, I think listen is just supposed to be the first part of whatever message these aliens wanted to deliver. I've seen the argument made that that was the entire message, that the alien... Coleman Domingo's character, Hugo, is like, outright says that, the biggest... God,
that they believe empathy to be like the supreme evolutionary advantage.
Yes, there we go. Thank you. So a big part of the movie is on having empathy for your fellow man and listening to them. So maybe that was supposed to be the entire message, that this alien showed up, whispered one word in Daniel's ear. Daniel whispered one ear to Margaret, and she says one word on camera. So if that's the case, then I wish the ending would have gone on a few seconds longer as people like leaned in and be like, huh?
And?
Was that it? Listen, we waited 70 years to hear from an alien and he said one word? Are you fucking kidding me? Like desk flip. Fuck this. Everybody get that alien.
Now there's the reality ensuing is like the producer that like calls over to his office afterwards like, what kind of ratings do you think we're doing from a segment like that? I want to hear his thoughts on the latest Kardashian drama next week or you're out of here.
Oh God, guys, I wanted to like this movie so badly. I left and I was like, I had pretty much the exact same reaction to this that I did to Rise of Skywalker. I walked out and I was like, it was fine. It wasn't great, but it is what it is. And then the more I thought about it, and I told Katie about it when I got home, and the more I wrote these notes, I was like, no, actually, this was bad. This was a bad movie.
I would, this is comfortably lower tier Spielberg for me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to rate it as low as Rise of Skywalker, because for Rise of Skywalker, that movie's entire thesis is please don't be mad at me, the internet. And whatever else, Disclosure Day had like ideas it was trying to explore. I just don't think it worked, but it's like, okay, this movie's trying to do something, and what that's not is to get a thumbs up from Reddit.
Yeah, no, that was the extent of the comparison between the two movies. The Rise of Skywalker is unequivocally the worst film. It was just that I had that same thought process of, okay, it was fine. Then I think about it more. I'm like, it was not fine. But yeah, Kara, what were your overall thoughts? I feel like you were higher on it than the two of us were.
Well, I mean, so I had my drive home that night to think, and I kind of came to a realization that even though I absolutely hate feelings and I hate having them and letting them out, just no. A lot of things I like movies, are based on how they make me feel. And this one, when I left out of there, made me feel like, okay. But, then we started having discussions, and now I'm like, okay, no, this really wasn't a good movie.
Well, now I feel bad because I never want to talk people out of enjoying things.
Oh no, I still enjoyed it.
Okay.
No, don't get me wrong. I had a great time because I don't watch movies the way that I know, especially you do, Hensley. I do not watch movies that way.
Analytically.
Analytically, and I mean, because I did that once for school and it was fine, but I'm not earning a grade for this, so
we've talked about this before, you and I, Robert, I think we may have as well, but I've spent so much of my life trying to break into the film industry and learning the ins and outs of storytelling, filmmaking, editing. And once you really start diving down, it's like knowing wrestling.
Yes.
Yeah, once you know how wrestling works, it ruins the experience for you.
Yes.
That's why I am overly critical of a lot of movies like this, because I'm like, a lot of these, Disclosure Day was one extra draft away from being a great movie. It needed somebody who wasn't Steven Spielberg and David Koepp to go in and do a cleanup draft and to ask questions like, hey, how come none of these guys notice him walking around back there? Oh, well, something draws their attention over here, and he uses that to his... It's just... It's stuff like that. Yeah, knowing the ins and outs of how this works will absolutely ruin movie watching for you, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, to use another example of a movie that, where the incompetence that enables the plot can actually be smartly handled, Jurassic Park, written by Koepp, directed by Spielberg. And the whole point is, this park is incompetently designed because John Hammond really did not understand what he was doing. And it's that's how you have a great movie and a script that, doesn't feel like it's expecting the audience to just ignore a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of on that note, I wanted to end on a more positive thing. So Steven Spielberg, I think he's directed something like 30 to 40 movies at this point.
61.
What?
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Holy
when I saw your note here at the bottom, I was like, oh, I should. There are certainly things that I am forgetting.
As director? Dang.
He has 61 director credits. Now, 3 of those are things that are upcoming or in development. So 58 directing credits.
Okay.
When you scroll through his IMDb, you're going to go, oh, yeah, I forgot that he directed that.
But I was just wondering, what is each of y'all's favorite Steven Spielberg movie? And I put a note in there, pick one before 1994, so Schindler's List and Jaws, and then everything before that, and then one from after, because I think that's kind of how people tend to divide his movie-making output.
That's easy, Jurassic Park. I love Jaws, don't get me wrong. Jaws and Jurassic Park are both, in my opinion, on the very short list of 10 out of 10 movies. Absolutely perfect, no flaws. But of the two of them, I think Jurassic Park this is going to sound like blasphemy to a lot of film nerds, but between Jaws and Jurassic Park, I think Jurassic Park's the better film.
Fair. Cara? You scrolling through?
Yeah, I was honestly trying to figure out. So, for me, it's so you said pre and post.
I say pick one before, like Jurassic Park or earlier.
Because for me, I would have to go Schindler's List and Jurassic Park. Like they're both like yep.
For me, it's going to be Raiders of the Lost Ark. I think
that's a good one.
It just, for a movie that sets out to be a thing and exists so perfectly as that, and just Spielberg is a great director of actors. Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones may be the finest performance he's gotten out of, and like the best performance of Ford's career. And like again, I think that's competitive for both men, but I love that movie so much.
And let's be real, the face melting was great.
Yes.
I loved that as a kid.
Since 1994, my favorite movie of his is probably Lincoln. Like he's got a lot of, I think he's got a lot fewer movies that I think are just unambiguous classics in the way that you talk about like Jaws or Jurassic Park or Schindler's List. But Lincoln is probably my favorite of just like, this is a smart movie that never feels like slow or drudgy. It's about heavy stuff, but still feels like lively and entertaining. It's just, yeah.
I'd forgot. See, and also I forgot about Twister. I love that movie.
Did he direct? I thought he produced Twister.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. You're right. Executive producer. Hold on. This list is...
Yeah, see, as I'm looking at his post-94 filmography, I'm like, wow, I haven't seen a whole lot of like 2000s beyond. So of the ones that I've seen, I think I had to give it to Catch Me If You Can.
Ah.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
That was a good one. Yeah, like I'm kind of scrolling through here. So let's see.
I just watched Band of Brothers on HBO Max, and that made me want to go back and see Saving Private Ryan again too.
Oh yeah, that was so good. So yeah, what? Schindler's List and Jurassic Park came out the same year?
Yeah.
The what?
Don't know if many directors have had a year like that.
Wow.
No.
Wow. But I'm kind of just scrolling through here, and yeah, I think I'd have to agree with you, Robert.
Well, it's wild to me where we're at in like the state of the filmmaking world. 2 weeks ago, we saw a movie that cost less than $1 million from a first-time director with a primary cast of 4 basically unknowns. That all 4 of us agree was like one of the best movies of the year and superior to this. Disclosure Day was directed by a man who's had 6 decades of directing experience. Actually, as I'm scrolling through his IMDb, he's got 7 decades of filmmaking experience with millions of dollars in this budget and a bunch of A-listers that we all walked away and were like, meh, the horror movie was better. And we're going to have a very different experience next week when the 3 of us go to see Supergirl, which... the reviews have been all over the place for. So I'm keeping my... I want that movie to be good, but I want Disclosure Day to be good as well. I'm a very big fan of this universe that James Gunn is creating here. I loved Superman last summer. It was my favorite movie of the year. So I'm really hoping that we get... And people shit on that movie before it came out and afterwards anyway, and it underperformed at the box office. So
James Gunn did Supergirl?
He produced it.
Yeah, so it's directed by...
Craig Gillespie.
Yeah. My anticipation for Supergirl is that I may or may not like it as a coherent thing, but I expect to have a good time watching it.
That's where I'm at. Yeah, that's kind of what I want out of it, is just to enjoy myself.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I want out of a lot of movies.
Mm-hmm.
But if I have to, sit there and watch Jason Momoa on screen, Fine, I'll do it.
That's exactly how I feel about Millie Alcock.
Who?
I just have to suffer through.
Yeah,
that.
Just doesn't matter.
That's been the funniest thing over the last few weeks, is watching the incels come out of the woodworks to call her ugly. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Well, there's a certain section of the internet that believes every woman in a comic book could only be played by Sydney Sweeney on the big screen.
You saw that too.
Which is more like, nothing against Sydney Sweeney, but I think is more about how most comic book artists have drawn most comic book female figures.
There is one comic book universe character Sydney Sweeney was born to play, and only one. It's Power Girl. If you don't know who that is, look it up and you'll go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, no, the fan edits that I've seen trying to shoehorn Sydney Sweeney into there is silly at best.
Well, it's sort of similarly like if you're not built like Alan Ritchson on Reacher, then you're too skinny to play like a male superhero. But for some reason, that doesn't get nearly as much of an internet freak out. Can't think why.
Yeah, call me crazy. I don't want Alan Ritchson to be Batman. There was a point where I was like, oh, that might be fun, but no. If anything, I wish that they'd just pull the trigger and unite the Matt Reeves Batman and James Gunn Superman universes. I can see it working. It would be ridiculous, but then again, so is Batman and Superman existing in the same universe. Anyway, do we have any final thoughts about Disclosure Day before we move on and finish up this episode?
I got nothing.
It really made an impression on all of us, I can see. All right, well, that's going to do it. We'll be back next week to talk about Supergirl. Social media. Robert, social media or something that you're enjoying right now?
So I recently watched A Man on the Inside on Netflix. I don't know if y'all have seen it, but Ted Danson plays a recent widower who gets recruited by a private investigator to go undercover in a local retirement home to solve like a series of thefts. And I love Ted Danson. It's from the guy who created Brooklyn Nine-Nine and The Good Place. Not at all what I was expecting. I was thinking, oh, this is going to be a murder mystery set in an old folks' home. Ha ha, hilarity ensues. Actually, a really sweet-natured story about just this guy trying to decide where he is at this point in his life, his relationship with his daughter, other people just kind of reflecting on their life and kind of what's left. It's a very sweet, humanist little story, and I found myself unexpectedly moved by quite a lot of it. So, yeah, like I said, I just watched Band of Brothers, so I wanted something a very different tone for the next thing I went through, and yeah, Man on the Inside starring Ted Danson.
Interesting. Cara, what about you? What are you reading or watching right now?
So I actually, not to get into the whole story, but I have discovered some new authors. And so I have just started a book by Nat Cassidy. And I'm liking it so far. He's a horror writer, and I'm very excited. I've got some new blood to listen. Wait, that doesn't sound right.
New blood to listen to?
Yeah, I got. Yep.
Yeah, just go with it.
Yeah.
It's fine. If you want to follow me online, you can do that on Instagram at DB Hensley. Otherwise, you can just catch me and my wife continuing to watch Twin Peaks. If you want to keep up with Long Walk Productions, you can visit us online at longwalk.us. To see more of our original work or hear past episodes that are no longer streaming, you can follow the YouTube links in the show notes. Thank you very much for listening, and if you enjoy this show, please make sure to leave us a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening on.
Listen.
Listen.